Coming off the Batman vs Aliens comics, Batman vs Predator feels like a big step up. Everything about this one feels richer, more detailed, and leaves you with a fuller feeling. For sure, the comic was a lot longer than I had anticipated and took me a couple of days to get through. With Aliens, I feel you're a little handicapped by the fact that xenomorphs work best in certain environments and under certain tones. Predator is slightly easier for a crossover. You just throw him in any universe, have a ship drop him off, and he can start his stalking and slashing. And what better place to have the Predator visit than the brutal, dirty and cynical city of Gotham? The backdrop story is very much fully realised and doesn't come off as a placeholder for the eventual main plot with Batman and the Predator launching punches at each other. It involves two of the city's biggest gangsters, both sponsors of two boxers, playing a power struggle tug of war with each other. When eventually both boxers and bootleggers end up with their spines torn out and flesh mutilated, it escalates the tension until the city realises that there is a sick serial killer on the loose. I really like the mob storyline, and then having it followed up with Batman going on detective mode in the hunt for the killer, and eventually the comic being rounded off with a terrific fight. I really like the look of the comic. Granted, it's got more to do with the comic's age, but the artwork had a vintage feel that added a lot to the gloomy and nihilistic atmosphere of a Gotham increasing day by day in blood-soaked street corners and apartments. One negative thing I will say about the way the comic is drawn, however, is that I did find it quite difficult, usually during the action scenes sometimes, to work out just what was going on. One moment two characters would be facing off against each other, and in the next strip one would be on the floor surrounded by an explosive cloud, for example. I was confused a couple of times. I found myself too many times flicking backwards and forwards trying to work out what just happened, and even began to suspect that I had pages missing. It was quite awkward and is the only real major flaw of the comic. Batman vs Predator has a brutal feel. It is unforgiving and contemptuous. I enjoyed just how unrelentingly violent it was, both visually and not. In fact, one of the most chilling segments is when the police discuss a murder victim who's had his hands torn off and stolen. The comic doesn't show us these severed hands, which definitely was the correct move because this way the Predator's actions felt sinister and vicious, and showing the hands may have looked goofy. Speaking of the extraterrestrial, one of the things I grew to appreciate with the first two Predator movies was the contrasting personalities between the two Predators. I might be giving the makers of Predator 2 too much credit for something they weren't even thinking about in the first place, but in the first one he's sneaky, curious, calculated and calm. The Yautja in the second movie, however, is a bona fide maniac. The lunatic must have been on some heavy coke because he prances around all over the city, effing and swearing at everyone, jumping into 5-man gunfights and beheading voodoo witch doctors left, right and centre. The idea of Predators following a code but having different personalities and styles really appeals to me. The Predator in this comic, slightly irritatingly, considers himself something of a comedian. He constantly quotes a sitcom he watched, saying things like "Honey, I'm home" in the middle of a fist fight with Batman, or while shooting a laser through the heart of a white heat-inspired gangster right in front of his mother. It contrasts a little too much with the brutal nature of the comic and would have been better off being done once or twice, as opposed to have the Predator being essentially a walking, talking, Everybody Loves Raymond episode. Still, when he's doing his thing, he is doing his thing. Ignoring his inability to shut up, this Predator is as merciless as they come. He takes out Gotham citizens, both good and bad, as simply and as swiftly as hitting the delete button on the keyboard. Even Batman poses little threat. I did wonder whether they would overpower the Caped Crusader in order to even the playing field, but I was happy to see that in their first fight the Batman very nearly kills the Dark Knight. And I don't mean in a cliche way where he gets a few bumps and bruises, but in such a way that Batman literally bails, having Alfred drive him away from the fight despite the fact that police officers, including his good friend Commissioner Gordon, are advancing onto the scene of the crime and are very much in the danger zone. So you've got all these police officers surrounding where the Predator is, and Batman literally running away in the other direction, showing just how tough the Predators are. Batman is so damaged after his brief encounter with the Yautja that he disappears for the next couple of pages, leaving Gotham and us to ponder whether he's still alive. I love the fact that he got his ass handed to him, a real departure from a lot of comics that have him easily dispatch his foes. When he does recover, he comes back more prepared and understands the Predator better. Their second battle is incredibly intricate and varied, going on for a very long time with Batman using all his aces to try and defeat the creature. It's a fulfilling finale and a rounding off that I think does justice to the two titanic characters on the front cover. One or two things left me scratching my head, like the Predator killing an unarmed blind old man and Batman learning the rules of the game rather quickly, but I do think this is a great crossover. I've given Batman and Aliens an 8 and I don't think it's better than this, so I'm going to go ahead and give Batman vs Predator an 8.5 out of 10.